right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started here. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and I also wanted to thank Dunger for sponsoring our event tonight. For them sponsoring us, they also hosted and have a nice giveaway prize for us. So I like the facility. You guys have done some nice work with the additions and a lot of growth happening around here. So that's pretty exciting to see the software industry growing like that. It was the weird stuff going. So just as a one announcement that I can think of right off the top of my head, we had a speaker lined up for next month. That speaker is moving out of town, so he had to cancel on me, which I suppose is understandable. So I think for next month we will do lightning rounds, which, if you're not familiar with lightning rounds, basically we want to have probably 4 or 5 people give a 10 to 15 minute presentation on something that they've been looking at, exploring, something they've been doing at work, you know, whatever that you're passionate about. It's a great way to get your feet wet with a presentation. I know a lot of people don't like to present, stand up in front of crowds, but you all are not that intimidating, so it's not that
Thanks.
I can start cowering if you'd like. So if you're interested in that, we'll be sending out an email probably within the next week or two and asking for people to volunteer for that, and we'd really appreciate it, and be a great chance for you to get more involved with the group. So again, I'd like to thank, actually before I turn it over to you guys, are there any other announcements that anybody has that they'd like to share with the group real quick?
I just joined.
You just joined, good.
CSG on 108th and Dark.
What's that?
CSG International on 108th and Dark.
Okay, great. All right, anybody else? Anybody else? You all are here, so you probably didn't get my email, but I sent out an email to everybody who hasn't logged into the website in the last 2 years. If you got that email, make sure that you log in, otherwise I'm going to delete your account. So, you're all here though, so that might mean that you logged in. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dan from Buildertrend and let him tell you all about what they're doing here.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it. First of all, if anybody needs food, drink, don't be shy. We've got beer, we've got people helping serve and all that good stuff as well. We'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. We know your time is precious. You have families at home. You've been working all day. That means a lot that you guys are looking to continue your education and your career, and that's a good thing for everybody, I think. Buildertrend, the reason we host this event is kind of twofold. One, we don't hide the fact that we're always looking for great talent. There's no way to hide that. We're growing at a great rate. We're looking for fantastic developers, support people, all the people like you. But behind that, we're doing some really, really cool things. We've hired some amazing people over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and even recently after the last couple months, are doing some amazing things, in the cloud and web-based applications. And what we're really excited about in our industry is the construction vertical. We sell and market to contractors throughout the United States, throughout North America, throughout the world, but we're really excited about where mobile's heading, and I think that's really not unlike really any other business. We think this little thing, your phone is driving a lot of innovation. We're seeing a lot of younger businesses, a lot of younger business people coming to market where this is all they really care about, and that's what we're focusing on. So we have about 150 to 200,000 users that are running on our application every day throughout the world. We've got roughly 2,000 companies that are subscribers to our service, again internationally, and these smart guys behind me that are way smarter than me are responsible for making it actually work and making it look pretty and all the things that are important. So I'm going to hand it over to Jake and Jeff and Kyle and Dave and all these guys. And we can't thank you enough for being here. We think this organization is really important to this community. There is demand for what you people do and ongoing education, because we all know that tomorrow somebody can come out with something different, that it's going to be important that we learn what we're doing and moving on. So thank you for being here. I'm going to pass on these guys, and again, help yourself to anything you need. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. My name is Jeff Dunger. I'm Director of Development here at Buildertrend. I'd also like to thank Matt and Brian for all the work they do with this group. It's a great group. We're happy to sponsor and present and host the event. We did it last year. We're doing it again now and probably will continue. I wanted to speak real quick just to kind of our development environment here. We're a .NET shop. We build our web app with ASP.NET. We make heavy use of the .NET framework, TFS for our source control and project management. And we also are heavy with jQuery, JavaScript, CSS3, HTML5, mobile web, and now a lot of native mobile as well. So we're doing a lot of cool things, working with a lot of new technologies. Our environment, we strive to keep it creative and keep that kind of startup vibe, even though we're well beyond a startup. We want to keep the high energy. We publish our updates daily. We program the flip-flops if you like just to be relaxed and cater lunches on Fridays and hang out, try to really communicate well with all of our departments, our support, our sales, and our development, so we're all on the same page. So it's kind of a unique environment, no cubes, open communication, share knowledge. We feel like, as we've grown our team now to 10 in our development department, we're able to cross-train and, pull that expertise from everyone on our team, and it makes us all better. So that's kind of how we build our solutions. I'm going to turn it over to Jake, who's our Director of Development, and he's going to talk along with Kyle, our architect, and David's our Senior Mobile Developer. We're going to discuss mobilizing ASP.NET Web Apps, and this is kind of really close to the vest for us because we've seen the need, like Dan said, with the mobile devices, and we want to make sure that we can transition from being a web app in 2007 to being a mobilized web app now, and so we can appeal to all of our customers and their iPads, shiny new iPads that they bought, or Windows tablets, whatever it is, and make sure that we're enabling the same technology that we on the desktop in the mobile environment. So I'll turn it over to Jake, and hopefully you guys can get a lot out of this presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Talk about it.
Thank you guys for coming. Just a little bit on my background. I've been doing .NET development for about 10 years, and just about a year and a half ago is when we started diving into the mobile. We realized that a lot of clients wanted to, they had a big mobile need, so we investigated and really wanted to reuse the knowledge we already had with ASP.NET, HTML, and our jQuery knowledge, and we were able to make that happen. And so basically an overview of what I want to go through tonight is basically why would you want to take your web application and create a mobile site is first and foremost. And once you've made that decision that you do want to go that route, I'm going to take you through an introduction to jQuery mobile. I'm assuming, a .NET user group, most of you guys have that core .NET foundation. So I'm going to take you through, if you haven't been exposed to jQuery mobile, I'm going to show you how to get started with that and what it takes to get up and running fairly quickly. And once you actually have an ASP.NET site that's mobilized, how to actually get an app out on the App Store or Google Play or whatever Microsoft calls their store, I'm not sure, ask Matt. I'm going to show you how to quickly get that done and get that out there so you can get up and running and help your customers. First and foremost, you got to identify why you want to use mobile pages. The first thing you can think of is real estate. If you pull your phone out, obviously it's hard to manipulate a full-blown website, web application, pages to fit on that phone screen without a lot of zooming in. And you can do responsive, but for every case that doesn't make sense. I'm going to show you a demo on what we did where responsive just wouldn't make sense, and a lot of our users demanded that we could quickly add functionality, add items at the touch of their fingertip and view their items without having to zoom in, zoom out. So my first demo is I'm going to look at one of our basic features here. This is the calendar system in our project. It's cool, there's drag and drop. You can go in here and modify items online. But if you're trying to do this on mobile, it's really hard with your fingertip to go in and touch and hit these little buttons or move items around to manipulate the page. If you try to fit that on a little phone, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially with pages like, if I were to go in here and try to edit this item, well, our calendar is smart enough to where as we shift these items, there's a lot of options to notify people. So if we're to try to view this on an Android phone, Windows phone, or whatever, it gets really hard to check all these boxes and keep track of everything you're doing. If you just want to make a quick change, it's much easier to have a mobile version of that. In which case, if I look at the schedule option in our mobile app, you can see that we have different filters based on time where you can view your items, and you can quickly scan through to see what items are on what day versus the chart that we're looking at on the screen over here. So if you quickly want to edit an item, just at the touch of your fingertip, you can pull that item open. And your notification options, we have a little save and notify button right there. Just makes it a lot easier. If I want to change the duration of an item from 10 days to 11, I get a numeric keypad up there, and it's a lot easier. You can see through JavaScript, we're manipulating that end date just as I'm typing different numbers. And that's calculating based on weekends and everything. We're still hitting our WCF service as you would, on a full-blown site. This is just a ASPX page with jQuery mobile on it. So that's, first and foremost, that's the reason you want to use an actual mobile site versus trying to make your regular site more responsive. Now, in order to get started, you need to identify what you need. We took the HTML5 route. It's the route that most browsers are going, most mobile devices support it. It's not fully supported yet, but it gets the job done for what we're looking to do. We're also using jQuery mobile. A lot of us have jQuery knowledge, so there's not a huge learning curve with jQuery mobile. In order to get set up, basically I'm going to show you guys a basic HTML page, not even ASPX, show you what you need. Just to have HTML5, you'll notice this doc type HTML at the top. If you're not familiar with that, that's just telling the page that we're going to use the doc type of HTML5. In your header, what you want to do is make sure that you have a viewport with the initial scale 1, meaning if you're actually going to open up a web page, and you happen to be zoomed in from the last one, it doesn't keep that zoom. It fills the screen with the content of the page. If you want to zoom in from there, you can. All you need to do is include the latest version of jQuery or whatever version you're on. Include the JavaScript file for jQuery mobile, the corresponding CSS file for the version you're using. Then we have our own CSS file because we have some styles like this mobile header that you see right here. But this is basically it for what you need to get started with the jQuery mobile HTML page. You'll notice that there's, for these divs on here, we have data role page. Basically, one HTML page can have many data roles of attributes with a page. What that allows you to do is switch between many pages within your HTML file. So that HTML file, if you just want to have one file and many pages on there, you can navigate based off ID, which page is visible at the moment. In my sample right here, we only have one page on here. And within that page, we have a header, a content, and a footer, and those are all using the data role attribute. You'll notice throughout my demo, I use that data role attribute for different sorts of things. Just to view this getting started page and what it looks like, this is what we're on right there. It's pretty basic. You have your header, you have your link right there, the go to text box demo, and your footer. Now, once you understand how to create an HTML5 jQuery mobile page, plugging it into ASP.NET Web Forms, we went the route of master pages. So we throw all the same content on there inside of our master page. And then inside of the form, you'll notice that we have our data role page right here. Well, the first thing in our header, you'll see that we actually have a couple options right here. We have a navigation panel. It's just a HTML anchor with a menu option. And what that's doing is it's saying that this navigation panel that it's pointing at, we have a data role of panel right here. And that's going to give you your menu. If I go to this page, that's going to give you the slider menu, like what you see in Gmail and LinkedIn, Facebook. A lot of things are using that slider menu. So that's how simple it is to throw that slider menu up there with jQuery Mobile. So all I have is an ID for nav panel. I tell it it's data role as panel, and I throw a list view in there. For our actual production site, we're dynamically injecting the list items based on our different pages. It's pretty easy to do, and I can take you guys through that code if you're interested. But just for getting started, that's basically what you need. The navigation panel, then inside of your header, put a menu up there for it. And your data theme and icons tell you that we want that icon with the 3 lines at the top left. That easily, I can slide that closed with my finger. It's just a pretty easy panel. So then inside of our data role content, we just threw a placeholder in there for any content. So every page that inherits from this master page, all you need to do is put your content in there and it'll have the same header with the same menu everywhere else. Now that you can get a page started, you need to take some sort of input. You guys are all familiar with Asp List Boxes. If you're not, really what it is it's the markup behind the scenes. It's just a select list with multiple sets of true in HTML. So if you look at my basic page, inside of my content placeholder, I just have a list box. The selection mode is set to multiple, and that's all that's on this page. You view how it looks on this tablet. You can see as I pull that open, it gives you a checklist, and it's rendered nicely with the rounded corners. It shows you how many items are selected on the right. It renders itself pretty well. Some of that, the rounded corners and the number, is due to jQuery Mobile, but the actual checkboxes are from iOS. Now what Android does, I don't have the screen to display the Android, but Android right here, I took a screenshot of our Android tablet. It displays it nicely with a different set of checkboxes. So one thing you want to do is identify what type of devices you're writing against, whether it's Apple, Android, Windows, mobile, whatever it may be. You want to make sure you test out all those different types of devices. For example, if I look at this in Chrome, this same page, and I try to pull that list box open, you'll notice it doesn't open correctly. Now if you're wondering why, when I view source on this page, all it really is a select list with multiple sets of true, and it should render fine. Well, what happened is jQuery Mobile, if I inspect the element here, you can see that that select list has a span wrapped around it with another span and a div. And all of these have different classes and data attributes on it. So jQuery Mobile's done some sort of manipulation. Now, if you're trying to write specifically for a browser and jQuery Mobile's causing you problems, what you can do, and your code behind is where I recommend it. We have a lot of select cases in our code behind based off of, we know in Android one thing may happen, or we're coding against a Windows phone, whatever it may be. We'll actually set the data attributes we need. In this case, that data role that I was talking about earlier, if you set that attribute and set it to none, like I'm going to do right here, what that does is it tells jQuery Mobile to not transform it. Basically, you're saying, I do not want jQuery Mobile to perform any transformation on this. So when I save that page and I refresh here in Chrome, you'll see that it's displayed just like a normal list box is. Now what happens in iOS is it displays it like an iOS list box right there, which you can also resize and transform as you want. It's just based on what you want it to do, you need to hook into your code behind, detect the type of device, and perform the transformations or prevent the ones you don't want. Now that you can see how to do a simple input, before I jump too much further, I want to get into debugging. You've seen me use the Chrome Inspector and Firebug, same sort of thing. Well, there's this thing, a remote debugger out there called Winery, and I'll share these slides with you. I have a link to it. Basically, what Winery does is it's a web inspector for remote devices. You can go to Debug PhoneGap, or you can run your own on your local server, local machine. And what that allows you to do is it basically, you take this JavaScript that I have up here. We have a machine running locally in the office that has Winery installed on it, and I'm pointing to that IP. Basically what's going to happen is this JavaScript is injected into the page, and that connects to this remote server, so I can go on and take this link based off of the key, I put the Omaha Microsoft Technology Group, OMTG. I put that as my key so we can tell what's going on with that page. So that list box that I was just showing you, this page right here, we'll take data roll off. I'm going to refresh that page. Then I'm going to take my winery link, and as I connect to this, as I connect to winery, if I refresh this, I can see all the devices that are hitting that page. So now that I can tell this is on the page, you'll notice as I hover over areas on this screen, you're going to see the areas get highlighted on the left screen. So as I hover over the different divs, I can hover over. If I expand this list out, jump into my content for that select list, I can jump in here and I can manipulate what the items say. So I can say item 456, and after I step out of there, you can see that's updated on the screen up there. Now the other thing I can do, if I'm trying to tell what's going on and really troubleshoot things, you can log out to the console. You can also remove elements from the screen. So as I'm looking at our header up here, this panel, if I want to add, dynamically inject different links in there or pull them out, I can quickly remove those. And you'll see I'm highlighting an area on the screen right here. I'm deleting it, and it's being removed over here on that screen. So that's kind of slick how you can manipulate the page as you want. You can send alerts. You can see the alert was sent to the screen. Then the last thing you can do, and we have some links at the end of this demo, is both with iOS and Android, and I'm sure with Windows Mobile, you can actually tether into your device and debug using Chrome or some other tool. And the links provide you with how to do that. You can debug and view a web inspector without installing the winery. The next control that I want to show you is basically something you're all familiar with, a basic text box. With .NET 4.5 combined with HTML5, this text mode attribute actually provides a lot of value to quickly get things up and running. So with this demo here, like I said with the other devices, you want to make sure that the items that you're putting on there, you test them across all devices that you plan on supporting. So for this example, I have a couple different things. You'll notice on the tablet I'm using right here, if I click in that date, it's going to launch a date picker. All that I'm doing in the code right here is saying text mode equals date. So setting that makes it good enough to format the date. If I were to set the current cultures thread to be something else like French Canadian, which we do, as Dan said, we're international in 9 different countries. We want to make sure that our Canadian clients who look at things backwards see things with the day, then the month, then the year. So as you see right there, it's formatted month, day, year. Those weird Canadians would see it opposite, and it actually, as they choose their date, it'll actually write back to the database just fine, because it actually saves out in ISO 8601 date standard, which is year, month, day. So that actually, you can read it back and it shows correctly to them. It takes care of it on the native device. Like I said, using these text mode properties, you want to be real careful that you're actually testing out the devices you plan on supporting. Like the color picker right here works fine on a desktop machine, but it doesn't work at all on this tablet that I'm using. And it functions differently. The different inputs, like the number here, will pop open a number keypad there. On the desktop, you can type in whatever and it doesn't prevent it. So it's helpful, but you definitely need to test against the different devices. One of the cooler things that most of you probably have used before is the HTML anchor link types, like mail to, for example. And this is pretty simple, but it's something that you don't think about as you're starting to write for mobile. You don't realize how powerful and how helpful it is to your end users. So things like the SMS, mail to, telephone, or your maps becomes very beneficial. If you look at this page right here, I have a mail to. If I refresh the page on the tablet, you can see these links up here. If I click that send Rui an email, it actually pulls up Matt's email address at Omaha Meeting with the native mail client. That works on pretty much everything. It's pretty basic, but it's good to know that that's out there at your disposal. You can call people, so if this were a phone, I happen to be using a tablet, it's not a phone, it allows you to add that number to your contacts, and that'll sync up with, whatever, if you're on Google, iOS, whatever else. You can text people, and this is actually, it pulls open your text messenger with a number. This actually happens to be Fidel's real phone number, so if you guys have questions afterwards, go ahead and send a text. Sorry, Fidel. And then lastly, you'll know I've injected some server-side code in here. Basically, we have some checks to tell the different devices we're on. So if it's an iPad or iPhone, and we want to pull open a map, we're going to have it called this href, which basically is using maps, with the actual address. And how that functions, right there, when I click on that link, it pulls open Apple's native map application. For Google, you use a geo with a colon, and you can put in longitude, latitude, or with a query string, you can put in the address you want. And if it's Windows Mobile, sorry, Matt. Nice. Now, this media capture happens to be one of the latest things that we started using, and it's pretty awesome. Basically, what it is a very simple example that I'm about to show you, but most new modern devices support it. The latest iOS 6.0 and higher, Android all supports it, your Windows Mobile will support it. Basically, what it does for you is you can specify with your HTML input, you can specify what you're actually looking to capture. So, with this media capture right here, with this input that I'm highlighting, I'm basically saying, hey, I only want to accept an image type, and I want to use the camera to capture it. So now on your ASPX pages, if you drop that on there, you can see right there I have a choose file. It allows me to take a photo. It's going to be of all you guys.
I'm so sorry.
I can click use. Now, what that does is, as you upload it, you can do a couple different things. By default, I'm going to attach to the process right here. I have a breakpoint set right there. I'm attached to the process. So as I hit this upload button, it's not really doing anything functionally. When you notice this, the input photo 1 posted file is actually nothing. So if you're used to getting that posted file server side and doing something with it, by default, jQuery Mobile prevents all inputs from actually sending whatever file you've attached up to the server. The reason is, if you have a 13 megapixel camera and you're taking a photo, that's going to be a 10 megabyte photo. When you're on a 3G connection, that's a lot to send up over the wire. So what you can do, you have a few different options. One, you can go into back to your master page, and on the form, you can set a data attribute called data Ajax, set it to false. What that's going to do is it's going to allow the inputs to actually go up to the server. So as I refresh this page, I choose a file from the gallery or photo stream. I hit that upload. You'll notice this input posted file actually has a value. So that's one thing you can do. Or the method that we prefer here which is a little bit slicker, is you can actually take that input, you can take that input, and I've added an on-change attribute. Basically, I'm going to call it a JavaScript method that passes in the input itself and a hidden variable on the page. So what that's going to do through JavaScript, is it's going to listen to the photo input change, and it's going to grab the file, the input file. And this input, you can have it send in many files. That's one of the new things with HTML5 too. We're going to read that in, and that result is going to actually be a base 64 encoded string, and you can take that URL and open it in a new browser, and that actually renders the photo that you're uploading just fine. But the thing is, just assigning it to that hidden element, you're still going to stream up a 10 megabyte file. So that's a huge data URL. So what we're going to try to do with it is load a new image dynamically on the page, set the source, and as that's loading, we're using an HTML5 canvas resize to trim the image down. Because if you're only storing it as 800 by 600, why do all that work passing it up to the server and processing it over a 3G connection? So we're able to resize it on the client before that's posted up. And it's a basic syntax. I'll share this too along with links on how to do that. And if the resize goes successfully, you can see right here if it works, we're going to update that hidden inputs value to be the resized URL. Now one little gotcha is the older Android devices, I think before 4.0, the canvas resize does not work. And older desktop browsers that don't support HTML5 as well, the canvas resize does not work there either. So you really got to watch out for it and plan, if that doesn't work for you, to pass up that 10 meg file or detect that and tell them it's not supported. So if I do a demo with this, what I'm going to do is take a photo, you guys again, I'm going to use that photo. So now that photo's in there, I'm going to jump into my web debugger. So I can see that we're on the media capture page. I can highlight over different areas. But if I'm really curious what's going on in here, I can actually look at my content and see and debug and see what's in that hidden photo input. So right here you can see that my on-change must have worked successfully because I have that value with full data URL. Now if I go into the console, I can look and see what's in there, and there's that full data URL. If you'll notice on this initial page that I have back here, I threw an image on there with an empty source and just gave it an ID. So that image is sitting on this page. So in my web inspector, what I can do I think I just lost. There we go. What I can do is I can, with jQuery, I can select that image that's on the page and set the data attribute for the source property to be equal to the hidden inputs value. And as I execute this line, you will see that image of all of you guys pop in on that screen. There you are. So there's some cool things you can do with JavaScript and this HTML5, canvas resizing and media capture. It's pretty awesome. Some other jQuery mobile demos that I wanted to show you. There's a lot you can do with it. I've just showed you a quick getting started, getting up to speed, capturing some text, images, and basic list boxes. You guys can jump through, use the rest of the controls as you want. I'm going to show you a couple other quick demos and then give you a link to actually hook up jQuery and then go on our way. So a couple other quick demos that I want to go through is this swipe. modern email clients and text messengers and everything has some sort of list where you can swipe to the right and remove an item. That's actually very easy to implement with jQuery Mobile. You'll notice on this page, all I have is an unordered list with many list items in it. You'll see those same ones displayed up here on the screen to my left. Now all you have to do is on page init, bind to swipe left or swipe right, and for those list items, you can either do transitions if you want, and I didn't actually implement it for this demo, I'm just doing a straight remove. Now if your device does not support, if it's not mobile or touchscreen and doesn't support the touch, then what you can do is bind to the click and remove the list item that way. So you'll see I'm going to grab Angela Smith right here and just swipe it to the right, and she's gone. Avery Walker, gone. So you can implement a quick list, delete items by swiping to the right. You can put up a confirm if you want. You can do that sort of interaction very easily with very few lines of code. If you look, that's only 22 lines of JavaScript right there. I also have a quick demo on how to line controls up nicely and align them so they're all butted up against each other. That's very simple to do. It's just another data role attribute, that same thing that I've been talking about with those other pages. Basically, if you look at this page right here, all I have on it is 3 checkboxes, but because they're sitting in a div with data role control group, it lines them up next to each other and it looks fairly nice without a lot of work or the need to get a designer in here to do that sort of thing. You can also, they don't have to be checkboxes, you can add any sort of control that you want. I'm going to put a drop-down list in there, save the page. As I refresh this, you'll see that there's a drop-down list right next to those. So I mean, that's very easy to do, doesn't take a lot of work, and you can get up and running fairly quickly. Now that you're somewhat familiar with how to get up to speed, there's some gotchas that I want to let you know about to help you guys get over the hump. One of the first things I want to warn you about is the Ajax Navigation. jQuery Mobile likes to handle all of its switching pages, navigating back and forth, using its own Ajax calls. So what it does is as you switch and redirect the different pages, instead of doing a full post, behind the scenes what it's going to do is it's going to grab that page and it's going to dynamically inject it in your current page. What that means is things like doc ready will only fire when the page is first loaded. Every time after that, doc ready doesn't fire. So you learn in jQuery, first thing if you want it to happen every time is fire doc ready. Well, jQuery Mobile, you need to actually bind to the page init event instead of doc ready because of that. Another thing that Ajax Navigation could do, if there's any JavaScript you ran or if you dynamically injected code into that page, that Ajax Navigation could throw you off and could prevent your JavaScript from running. So with hooking jQuery Mobile into ASP.NET, one thing I recommend is if you're having any sort of trouble, this line of code right there turns the Ajax enabled off. Your transitions won't be as smooth, but you can handle them on your own. Another thing that we've noticed, a lot of our pages we dynamically add line items to. Excuse me. If you're having any sort of trouble with form submittal because you're clicking an ASP.NET button, jQuery Mobile hijacks the transitions. So if you set uses submit behavior to false, it puts the regular do post back on the page and it submits the page just fine. Just another gotcha that you should watch out for. And as I displayed earlier, setting data role to none actually stops jQuery Mobile from auto-enhancing your page. So if you have an input element on a page with jQuery Mobile is going to take that input and slap some spans around it and really transform the way it looks. If you don't like that and you want to style input the way you want or put controls over the top of it, just set data role none as an attribute on there, and that'll prevent jQuery Mobile from doing its auto-enhancing. Now that we've covered how to actually create a mobile site, I want to jump a little bit into how to get an app out in the App Store, or Windows Store, Android, Google Play, whatever it may be you're trying to do. And I'm not sure how many of you guys were here last year. Can I see a show of hands? So about half of you. Just to touch base quickly on what we went over last year. We use, with any native app, you can launch your first page to be an HTML page on that device. So you don't necessarily have to go to an Objective-C web view or a Java web view or whatever Microsoft's web view is. You don't have to jump to that first. You can actually launch an HTML page that's compiled and built into your native application to be your first page. Because of that, you get handled to JavaScript. If you've included jQuery, you can hit WCF methods. That's what we do for authentication. We store the device unique ID and we give them a unique token after they've logged in once. And we cookie that all on our production server. Or we store that in the database. That way when they re-authenticate, it's all cookied in here based off the device unique ID and the token. We can re-authenticate them and get them back up. Now last year, we spoke a lot about this component included with PhoneGap called Cordova now. It was called Child Browser. What that would do is as you launch that native page, it would pull open a child browser on top and it would look like you're still in the native app. Well, it's pulling open another web view. It takes time to load and it just didn't make a lot of sense. Plus, the more we talked about child browser around here and being next to a daycare, it just raised some eyebrows. So we switched away from that. And now we're using this new functionality included in PhoneGap called in-app browser. Well, what in-app browser allows you to do is it allows you to stay in that first web view that you launch. So if you're launching an index HTML page that's compiled on your native device, you can actually redirect inside of that web view, not even pulling open another one, redirect to an ASPX page out on your production site. And that's what we're doing. The syntax for that with the in-app browser is just window.open with your URL. Your target is self. And the awesome thing about that is it loads quicker and you also have access to any of the native functionality. So if you have somebody who wants to dive into native Java or Objective-C, whatever else, they want to dive into that and use it from your public site, do updates on your site without resubmitting to an app store, you have full capability. Now the way to accomplish that is inside of every one of your ASPX pages or master page, you can detect if you're actually in your native app and you're hitting that. If you're in your native app, what we're doing is we're dynamically injecting our Cordova/PhoneGap's JavaScript files. We're dynamically injecting them into the page, which allows us to listen to the events and execute native code. Now, one of the gotchas about navigating to one of your ASPX pages is once you're out there, you need to get back to the native HTML that's on this device. You know, we have a need. There's some native things where we cache files, cache documents. We have just some things built in native that we get better functionality with the hardware. If you need to do that, the good thing to know about is finding the exact file path. For Android, it's pretty simple. It's just Android asset www. For iOS, it's a little bit tougher. You have to, with PhoneGap, you listen to device ready and you request the file system. That root URL will tell you how to get back to the native, where it's actually installed at. As far as testing goes and deploying, we've added to our team obviously since last year. We've discovered some ways to easily get everybody in the office to test without tethering it. And right now this works for iOS, Android, it may be coming out for Windows. I apologize, Matt, I know for sure. But what it allows you to do is instead of having, asking 5 guys in the office to come tether in and test, what you can do is you can deploy to this toolkit called Test Flight. And all you have to do is deploy up your compiled executable file. And everyone on their devices, their phones, whether they're at home or in the office, they'll get an alert that they need to download and run that file. Did I say all that right, or is there anything that?
It's just really nice because it gives you a core location to track all of your testers. So it allows you to manage different groups. We could show you, but we can set up QA groups, we can set up alpha testers, beta testers. iOS, you have to get the unique device identifier for each tester, but when they sign up for Test Flight, it will email you their device ID instead of having them plug into their iTunes and try to figure out how to find your UID. It'll just send that to you. Android devices, it just sends you their information. What device they have, what version of the operating system they have. It will give you tracking of when people installed it. So if they've installed the app, if they've read the email, things like that. It allows you to look at all those things and manage those in one location. And the best part of it is it's free. So if you go to testflightapp.com, they allow you to do all this for free.
I don't know if this is off the network now. It's going to take you through a quick demo of our actual production app. The next slide I had was basically the links to everything I've talked about in here, whether it's jQuery mobile demos, media capture, the Safari debugging, the Chrome debugging, and installing your own version of Winery. These links should help you out. I'll share this with Matt, and then you know, if you guys have any questions, we're open to answering those now. Or we can also, one thing that we can do is have different breakout sessions. If you want to dive deeper into the code, Kyle, he's our lead architect, David's our lead mobile developer. The three of us should be able to help answer and dive deep into any of the code if you want to. I know last time a lot of people wanted to really see the code and tailor questions towards that, so we're more than happy to help you and, you know, show you at our desk too. Hoping we can get this. Hey, there we go. So basically, to take a step back, that test flight that we're talking about, is that on here? Test flight we're talking about is not on here. All right. Can you pull it up on this?
Yeah.
Pull it up. He's connecting with his. Which Wi-Fi are we on? We're on beach, but we didn't bring our beach back to mobile. You guys have any questions while he's pulling that up? Oh, really?
So what have you found with the challenges of doing jQuery instead of going fully native? What trade-offs or balances?
Well, that's a very good question. One of the trade-offs is speed and performance. Going fully native, you get access to the actual hardware, the speed, and the components that you have actual access to is a lot better. Using jQuery mobile, it's kind of quirky. It acts different on different devices. The good thing with going jQuery mobile and a site, obviously, is with your site, we need to make, you know, if we realize there's a production bug out there, we can change it and publish it up, you know, to our production server like that. Versus if you have a bug on Apple, the turnaround time is, it used to be 10 days, now, I don't know, maybe we've gotten better development and they like us, but it's only 2 days. It's just, that's one of the trade-offs is if you really have a showstopper out there, it's nice to be able to quickly do a publish. And then another trade-off is, if you go jQuery mobile and make this hybrid type of app, you can actually write it once, leverage the knowledge you already have. You don't have to learn Objective-C. You know, I'm not a big fan of that. It's pretty ugly. You can use the knowledge you already have. And what's that?
That's not nice.
He's a big time Apple guy.
One other thing is with the phone gap we're using the Cordova, as far as the trade-off he's talking about not being able to access some of the native functionality, they provide a plugin framework for you, so you can write plugins that actually you write Objective-C in Java and you can access any of that native functionality you need to.
Okay. Another issue with writing the web side of things is the web is on mobile a lot like the web was 15 years ago on desktop. It's not. You know, even though Google and Apple use basically the same browser underneath, they have decided to implement different versions or different parts of HTML5 and not other parts. Jake was talking about the canvas resize was actually in Android 2.2. The function was there, but all the function contained was a comment that said, to do, please fix this later. So finally in 4.0 they implemented the function and the function works. So in 2.2 and 2.3, if you call the function will respond to you. It's there. It's not going to say undefined. It's not going to say, hey, this function doesn't exist. It exists, but it doesn't do anything. So figuring out things like that. iOS, you get kind of a slowed down version of this browser that we're looking at now. Android, Cordova has done a great job of trying to implement all the functions, the JavaScript to Java functions that they can implement, but it's not all there. We've hit points where we're trying to upload photos, and if you're in the regular browser and you click an input, it will ask you if you want to take it from a camera or if you want to take it from the gallery, where in Cordova they haven't implemented all that. So we had to go in and implement that Java code in the Cordova browser to get that to function correctly. So this is a test flight up here. Basically, you're in a website and it lists all the builds that you have access to. So we have Android and iOS builds, but since I'm on an iOS device, this is actually going to show me just iOS builds. So we have access to the beta version and to the regular version. And if I click on one of those, it will give me the release notes, the details, what size it is, when it expires, the minimum OS version, and what team that came from. But after going to their website and going through the login process, you'll notice up in the top right hand corner it installs a quote unquote app on the desktop of your iOS device. On Android, when you go to their website, it just asks you if you want to download their APK, which is actually a compiled version of their web code that this shows also. So this is a non-compiled, just link to their website. The Android one's a compiled version with the website built in, pulling the data from their website.
Thank you, David.
Do you find much like different families of browsers you can more deal with, like ones that are WebKit based or not?
Yeah, most things will work between Android and iOS. We haven't got into Windows Phone or BlackBerry here. With Canada, BlackBerry is obviously a big pull. They asked for that, but so far we've done Android and iOS. Between the two, and when I started here about a month ago, they said 95% code share between the two. So mostly it works across the two. There's a few places where you're like, if iOS, do this, if Android, do this. So kind of like the location services that we talked about earlier. You have to call it this way on iOS, this way on Android. You'll call it some other way on Windows, and yet another way on BlackBerry. BlackBerry's kind of tried to make it similar to Android just to give people portability to get their app store builds quicker.
Mostly once they get up to more modern, like the BlackBerry 10 and kind of
Yeah,
that level
10
of
and
stuff.
above, yeah.
Okay.
So
you're not having to deal with the older as much.
yeah.
How do you guys determine what devices? What devices? How do you guys know whether it's an iPod, iPhone, an Android device, a tablet?
Well, with Cordova, you get access to that information. If you're not in PhoneGap or Cordova, you can look at your headers and look at the details that are coming across with the headers on the browser version.
But those usually, the ones that I've seen, they tell you like a tablet that is a mobile, a phone is a mobile. So how do you know bigger, smaller one?
You don't, and actually our app doesn't really care what you're on. There's some CSS that we have that based on the size of your screen, it changes, but the views actually don't change at all. The views, we don't, if you're an iPhone or you're an iPad right now, we send back the same view. The CSS may alter that view somewhat. If you're on our login screen, you look at it in landscape, it'll change the view of it, so you can do a lot of that with CSS.
Yeah, right there's a quick demo. All our different devices, it resizes that big image, so on an iPad or iPod, it'll look appropriate for the size of the device you're on. You'll notice as you start typing, I think that Remember Me jumps up. I guess that's just on my phone. You get used to seeing it different ways. It's right there, it's above the username. When you're here, it's below. So we do a lot of, we are using media queries and responsive design where it makes sense. Just, we're going mobile. It's a separate application from our web application. We share a lot of the same code, but they're separate pages.
For your testing, then, do you emulate, multiple different environments to test the functionality is concurrent?
Yeah, we have a team of testers, and what they do is they go through, we have tablets sitting all over in our development area. They'll go through the different tablets, they'll try to break it. They make sure they hit our mobile site, the different tablets, phones, and everything they can, get their hands on. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of Windows phones in the office. I think we've hired 30 people, and that one guy up there is the only one with a Windows phone. So.
All the testing falls on him.
Yep.
Which is also an accurate representation of our customer base too.
It really is. Yeah, sure.
Just real quickly, I showed you guys the media query on there. Our app, we've done a lot of cool things. We hook into, this document functionality is all native. And we've been able to hook into third-party tools. Like this one right here, we're actually calling a WCF method, and we've came up with a way, our users asked for a way to modify Word docs and spreadsheets in the browser. So what we've done is we came up with a way to hook into this third-party tool called Zoho. Looks like there's not a lot on that document, but you can pull open a Word doc right there in the browser and modify it. Same with the spreadsheet. It says open in edit mode. I think a feature David just worked on. That spreadsheet's not compatible. The feature that David just worked on is we pop up a context menu that can either open it for edit mode or view only. But it's pretty slick. We've done a lot with our mobile app. It's come a long way from where it was a year ago, and we have a lot of cool things going into this. We have a slider menu out there, and this device isn't hooked up to the latest version. But there's a slider menu. You can see in here I can start typing in the spreadsheet. It's like there's an error with my keyboard, but we have I showed you the schedule icon. We just have a lot of different items we're adding to our interface. We're using jQuery to dynamically go and grab information about our users, the email address, so you can quickly send an email. So instead of loading all that content on one page, we're hitting the WCF method on the back end to go grab the item from the list and dynamically inject it into this one page. Good thing about this is if you scroll halfway down the page, it's a long list of items, and you click a specific user, you can see information about that guy and not have to hit the back button and scroll back down to figure out where you're at. So we've really leveraged a lot of this jQuery mobile technology and done a lot with it from the business side to provide a lot of value to our end users. Sure, you can hijack it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, like he was talking about, we added this context menu that allows you to open, edit, email a document. Obviously this is an image, so we can't edit this image. So it knows that we can't edit it. But if I click this email Jake was talking about that in your web views that you can do a Ahref with, a email to send an email. If you're in Cordova, you can actually download someone else's code that wrote Objective-C or Java, and just throw it in this directory. It explains how to do it, and then you can connect to the native actual email client. So this email client is actually popping up inside of this application instead of going over to the email application. If you were in this app and you clicked on that link to an Ahref to send an email, it would actually leave your application and go to that email client on the phone. So to get around that, you can download these clients, and then they just give you a JavaScript function that you call, and we're sending in a subject and an HTML body, which you also can't do through an Ahref. So we put in a link up there to link to that actual file, and could throw in as much HTML as we wanted. And Jake was showing earlier, those menus, those panels are now built into our app also.
Yeah, one thing we've done is we've dynamically, based on user preferences, what the builder has turned on, we can dynamically inject items into that list. We're in a WCF method. It's going and grabbing those images that you see on the top left. So if a guy can't see photos, that whole section wouldn't show up. Or if we decide to update that image, we don't need to republish to Apple, Android, Windows. We just send that new image up to our production server, and as he refreshes the page, you'll see a different image next to the photo for that icon. So we've done a lot of cool stuff where we're dynamically injecting items and grabbing items off our production server and having to do as little coding on the native side as possible. You guys have any other questions? Yes.
What can't you do that you would like to be able to in the future?
I don't know if there's anything that we're aware of that we're incapable of doing. We may not have the manpower at the time. That's why we're talking to you guys. We have a lot of awesome features. Then you guys want to come in and work on a time clock feature. We'd love to. We've had builders request to be able to have a subcontractor, have a painter show up at the house, click clock in on their phone. Then they can see if they're actually at Denny's eating breakfast and on the clock. So, if you guys want to work on a feature like that, sure, come over. There's a lot of things we can do, and we have a sharp team over here. A lot of good ideas coming in constantly. We just need the manpower to do it. There's nothing, functionally, there's nothing preventing us from doing what we want to. It's just a matter of prioritizing, getting around to the most important items. We talked to some builders at our trade show back in February, and they asked, hey, I'd love to be able to walk into Lowe's and scan a barcode and have that automatically update, on our production site saying that this item was added at this price. Good idea, just where does it fit priority, and with our manpower, can we do that right now? So that's more of the question. What are we doing right now versus when can we do it?
You're asking what we can't do in web that we'd be able to do in native? Is that more of the question?
Oh, okay. So what can't we do with web? Okay, I got you.
There's a few features that are upcoming that are more geared towards a native side. The idea that if you go into Facebook on a device and you go to your photo gallery, it pulls up Facebook's own photo gallery. They're accessing your data, but it's showing it in their view, where you can select 10 different photos and click an upload button, and it then goes and uploads those 10 photos. Things like that are a little difficult to do in the web, because you can't really replicate, you can't pull in all of that data from the native side into the web view and then select it and then upload that data. So one of the neat things about Cordova is it gives you this bridging ability and to bridge between native and web and go back and forth. So that'll be one of the things up and coming is we'll be able to bridge back and forth and do what we need to do in native natively in Objective-C or Java or .NET or whatever that device uses. And then everything else do web.
Good question. Any other questions out there? Like I said too, if you guys have questions and you want to dive more deep into the code, we're more than happy to show you that. Kyle, David, and I will stick around for a little bit, and, help answer some of those, or how would you accomplish this? We'll feel free to ask individually too. Yes.
For, say, a given functionality that you could implement either as in HTML5 or as native, then what tends to be your performance difference for if you have some heavy number crunching function that you want to do, then when you decide, I can do this in JavaScript or this needs to be native.
I'm going to defer to David. If it comes to number crunching, usually that's out on the server. It's in our WCF, so that wouldn't really matter. You can write native to hit the WCF, or
say if you were trying to manipulate an image or something like that.
Yeah, that's where I'll defer to him.
Like Jake was talking about in his discussion is there's a lot of Android 2.3 devices out there, and some of them actually have good cameras on them. They have 8+ megapixel cameras on them, and so you're talking about a fairly large file that you're trying to upload over a 3G connection, which can be a meg per second. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to decide, do you make your customer suffer through that, or do you, take that bridge approach and shove that image outside of your HTML into Java, into Objective-C, do the image resizing, and then send that data URL back and into the HTML document, and then have your HTML document upload it through Java or Objective-C. Some of the places I've noticed where the web just can't handle it is where you're parsing big sets of data. One of the applications I've worked on, the main page that you load up at the beginning of the screen loaded 30 images, and all at the same time. And it had a bunch of JSON data around it, and the JavaScript took up to 10 seconds to parse that JSON and decide what to do with it. If I wrote it in Java, it would take less than a second. So you want your user to sit there for 10 seconds while you parse that data every time they open the app, or you take the extra couple days and write it in the native language, and you can make that bridge approach of where your JavaScript thing can access that data once it's parsed, and it can do with it what it's best at and show that data in the right format. I mean, JavaScript's single-threaded. You only have one thread, so anything you're doing in JavaScript is blocking your UI. So if you got a JavaScript button that opens up those slider panels, and you're sitting there parsing data with your JavaScript, and someone clicks on that button to slide that panel won't work. So you have to think about, how much can you get done in that one thread, and what's going to impact that user.
So on a more modern phone, then using the native application, you can take advantage of multiple cores.
Yep. That's a big thing that I know Apple and Google and Microsoft and supposedly BlackBerry, I haven't looked into them much, but have worked a lot on is threading applications. I know Google and Apple both, throughout their documentation, push and push and push. You do not do things on the UI thread. You do not parse data, you do not access the database, you do not manipulate things, you do nothing on the UI thread. The UI thread is for showing data. So until you're ready, you don't push things to UI thread. You do everything in a background thread, and you can start as many of those as you want. So it's maintaining that, memory threshold that on the web we don't have to worry about anymore. On desktop applications, you don't have to worry anymore. All of our desktops have between 12 and 16 gig of RAM on them. And so you run a desktop application like Photoshop that just eats up RAM right and left, your desktop doesn't care about it. But on an Android phone or iOS phone, if you start eating up, if you go from 10 meg of RAM to 30 in a second, both Android and iOS will kill your application right then and there. You have to slowly ask for memory, and you have to do it in a way that their operating system thinks that it's okay. Facebook's app takes 150 meg of RAM, but they do it in a way that's friendly to the operating system. But if you do it too quickly, it will kill your application.
On the prizes,
You ready?
no one else has any questions, sure.
All right, thanks guys.